Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. Hey, we're going to jump into a question today that's sort of not quite sure about the question. So let me read it out, and then we'll see where we get to. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. If you're not familiar with those scriptures, they're from Hebrews 11, verse 6 and Psalm 127, verse 1. And then the person goes on, can we trust the Holy Spirit to build his church? It's a great question. And if this is your question, my apologies. I'm struggling a little to quite understand what you're asking. Can we trust the Holy Spirit to guide us into the plans of God? Absolutely, 100%. The Holy Spirit is God. He's the third person of the Trinity. Does the Holy Spirit give us gifts for the building up of the church that Jesus said that he would build? Absolutely, we can. He does. But does the Holy Spirit actually build the church? It depends on what you mean by the church. If you're talking about a local congregation of believers, like, for example, ALC, then I would have to say yes and no, which is why I'm struggling a little with the question. The reason I say yes and no is that because when Jesus speaks of the role of the Holy Spirit in our lives as Christians, it's always to empower us to be his witnesses, to continue the work that he gave us, the work that he started, as that we call the Great Commission in Matthew 28. And that's not to build the church, but to extend his kingdom. It's almost like the local church is a byproduct of kingdom focus. When you read the scriptures, they're not there building the local church. The local church is the expression of a group of followers of Jesus who are focused on the Great Commission, bearing witness to him and extending his kingdom. It's worth noting that when Solomon, and this is only one of two Psalms that Solomon actually wrote, so when he says that unless the Lord builds the house, its laborers, as builders are laboring in vain, the word that we translate house is the same word that is used for our lives, for ourselves, if you will, for families. You could legitimately translate that passage, unless your life is built around the Lord, it's in vain. So while Solomon is indeed talking about the temple, the house of God, and in the New Testament context, let's not forget that the house of God, the temple, is not a building. Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 that we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So when you say, can we trust the Holy Spirit to build his house, to build our lives as the temple of the Holy Spirit? Absolutely. We can trust them to build our lives. In fact, that's what Jesus says in John chapter 16, that he would send the Holy Spirit to guide us into all truth and wisdom. Why? So that we would build our lives on the foundation of God, on the foundation of heaven, as revealed in the scriptures and testified to by the Holy Spirit. Again, in Ephesians chapter 1 and elsewhere in the New Testament, the church is defined as the body of believers. So Paul talks about the role of the pastors, which is a gift, one of the gifts that the Holy Spirit gives to the church. It's to care for the body. It's not to lead a local congregation as such. It's to care for the body, to help them, strengthen them and encourage them, so that they can bear witness to Jesus. Again, he talks about the teachers, who the gift of teaching is given to people to instruct and to build up the believers so they can continue the work of Jesus. I think that's why the New Testament never envisages a situation that we see today, where people would claim to be Christians but not connected, not intimately involved with the local congregation. In the Bible, that's an anathema. It just doesn't exist. They can't imagine it, because how can you be part of a body but not be part of a body, not participate in it? How can you claim to be the temple of the Holy Spirit but cut off from the thing that actually gives you fulfillment and purpose in life? That's why being involved in a local church in the New Testament is mission critical. So to answer your question, can we trust the Holy Spirit to build his church? We can trust the Holy Spirit to build the church that Jesus envisaged. Absolutely. Jesus envisaged a group of believers who are committed to the Great Commission, who are allowing the scriptures and the Holy Spirit to shape and to mold their lives around the things of God so that we can be a witness to him. And we can trust the Holy Spirit to do that. Absolutely. We can trust the Holy Spirit to empower us to be witnesses, to lead us into all truth, and to strengthen us in our faith and our hope and our love in ways, as Hebrews says, please God. Can we trust the Holy Spirit to guide church pastors and leaders? Absolutely, we can. However, I sense in your question, it's almost like there's a tension, can we trust the Holy Spirit, or have we pushed him out because we're doing our own thing? I think that just because we can trust the Holy Spirit to guide church pastors and leaders doesn't mean to say that church pastors and leaders are infallible. Do they get it right every time? No. Does it mean they're not trusting the Holy Spirit? No, not at all. The Bible is very clear that no matter who we are, this side of glory, none of us has perfect revelation. None of us is where we think we are. That's why we are called to think of ourselves soberly and to esteem others as better than ourselves. I think that's one of the reasons Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do the will of my Father. In other words, those who walk with genuine humility, who seek to give more room to the Holy Spirit and to others, to correct, to strengthen and encourage them. We need each other to be everything God has called us to be. None of us is perfect. That's why we need each other. And pastors, church leaders, we're acutely aware, or ought to be acutely aware, that we are infallible, we're not perfect. But that doesn't undermine the work of the Holy Spirit to guide, to lead, to correct. Look at David's life. Look at Solomon's life. Look at the New Testament. It's littered with examples of imperfect people that God uses for his perfect means. So, yeah. Hope that sort of answers the question. You're right. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. The Holy Spirit leads us into a humility that lets us live by faith with hope and love in ways that please God. When we let the Holy Spirit build our lives, the house of our life, the temple that he inhabits for the glory of God, great things are going to come. Doesn't mean the local church is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's what Jesus has chosen to be a witness to him. So yeah, hey, love to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe I'm reading the question wrong. So give me your thoughts in the comments below. Hey, if you've got questions on faith and life, you can ask them on slido.com. Use the hashtag ALC23. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, God bless.